This is Tell Me What to Read, powered by Booktopia. I'm Nick Wasiliev, and today we are sitting down for a very special episode to commemorate our September Book of the Month. Today we have TikTok royalty as Emily Henry chats with Taylor Jenkins Reid about her brand new book, Carrie Soto is Back. Check the show notes for timestamps for each interview, and if you're enjoying our show, drop us a like on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcasts and let us know what you think. Now, over to Emily Henry's interview with Taylor Jenkins Reid, author of Carrie Soto is Back, which you can order right now from booktopia.com.au as our September Book of the Month.
Hello, I'm Emily Henry, and I'm here with Taylor Jenkins Reid, who, in addition to her very impressive and very, very, very short bio, I will say, is one of my favorite writers of all time. And I'm so honored to be here with you, Taylor, talking about your new book, Carrie Soto is Back, the fourth and allegedly, as far as I know, final in your quartet of kind of Taylor's mythos of California famous women. And yes. I had the joy of getting to read this book, as I was telling you, within the last 18 hours, and don't know if I blinked. Definitely had to eat multiple puddings as meals because I just couldn't put it down. And for a book that's ultimately about tennis, I have to tell you that is a true testament to your talent and your ability. And I'm so excited to be here with you talking about this book.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being here because, all the nice things that you said about me, I can say right back to you. I just think the world of you. And I think you are such an exciting and interesting writer. And so it means a lot to me to have you like my work. That really means a lot.
I mean, that's wild. Nothing will give me imposter syndrome faster than reading your books. And I was rereading Daisy before Carrie Soto, and reread part of Malibu Rising before Carrie Soto. And it's just phenomenal to see your growth in all of those books where it's it really feels like every book you set out to top yourself. And I'm not sure if that's the case, but it feels like it. So I guess we can start. I guess we should do the short little elevator pitch for the 3 people in the world who don't know who Carrie Soto is and why she is back. And then we can get into it.
Yeah. As my daughter asked me, who is Carrie Soto and what is she coming back to?
Really? Was that the other title that you considered?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's so funny because it was originally called something else, and I was really trying to figure out what it should be called. And and so my daughter was asking me questions because she really wanted to help me.
Yeah.
And eventually she came up with, what about Meet Carrie Soto? She's coming back to playing tennis. I was honestly, Lila, that's pretty good.
I honestly feel like that's what every editor and marketing team in publishing is looking for. They're just tell us what the freaking book is about. And you're what if it was called A Tiny Speck of Dust Dancing in the Starlight? And you're no, we can't sell that.
No metaphors, please. I need straight facts.
Lila. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. She's a true talent. Yeah, Carrie Soto is Back is a story about a former #1 women's tennis player who comes out of retirement at the age of 37 to try to defend her Grand Slam titles record. And it's the story of that year of her life, every Grand Slam tournament that she plays and whether she can do what she set out to do. And, Carrie Soto is a fun character to write and I think spend time with because she just won't do what she's supposed to do. She just refuses to abide by certain societal expectations, and it was really, really fun to write somebody like that.
Yeah, she's amazing. Was she the starting point for this book? Did you, because she's mentioned in Malibu Rising, as we know, is that the first time she shows up? Because I didn't pick up any other mentions of her. Okay.
So when you wrote that,
did you know?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I knew I didn't. Basically what happened was I was writing Malibu Rising, and I don't know if you have this feeling, but I feel like I can't possibly think of whatever the next book is.
Absolutely not.
Until this book I'm completely emotionally divorced from. Yeah. And so everyone's always like, well, what would come next? What will come next? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm
there's
not
no
going to
space for
know
that
until I've broken up with this book, and then I can let other thoughts in. And so I had finished Malibu Rising, and I was basically fixing a couple of like details in the book, but like the plot was done, the characters were all done, all was done. It was just like basically copy editing.
yeah
And I was reading Andre Agassi's Open because I wanted to get a couple of details about something with Brandon Wright. And I read that book and I thought, oh, I would love to write a book like this. I would love to write like a fake sports memoir about like, you've got a champion and can they do it, or and I was like, but I'm not gonna write about Brandon Randall. I don't care about that guy. And then I was like, oh, but Carrie Soto. And what immediately came to me was how interesting to check in on Carrie Soto when she's not the number one champion anymore, when that part is behind her, and when she is older and trying to figure out what her future looks like. I thought, if I can check in on her 10 years after we've seen her, when she's living in a totally different world, and this question of, is she still the best, is an urgent, terrifying question for her. I just thought, oh, to spend a year watching her try to prove that she isn't what she is.
yeah
Oh, I just thought that was so much fun.
It's so interesting to me because when I tell people about your books, because I feel like as writers, obviously we're always trying to like figure out what we can steal from people, or at least I am. I'm like, what are they doing that I don't know how to do? And with your books, there's obviously like incredible tension, which is really hard to do in contemporary without like huge kind of like over the top stakes, but all the stakes in your books are like very real life stakes. And then on top of that, you love writing characters who are quote unquote unlikable. So it's like, why is this working? Why is there so much tension that like this woman who's really quote unquote, whatever, just assume the quotes from now on, difficult and not that like nice or sweet or whatever. And she just wants to win a freaking tennis, like she wants to win at tennis, but it's like, it feels so life and death, because in real life, obviously it does feel life and death, but that doesn't mean most writers can do that. It's like unbelievable to me how you suspend tension. But I think the other thing that I think of when I think of a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, or there's a lot, but these two big things that I'm like, ooh, if I could bottle her and like drink it like a potion before I wrote, it'd be like, I want your tension. And then you have this amazing ability to observe what we're fascinated about. And I know it's like your fascinations, but you home in on these things that are like, we're all obsessed with them. I mean, like Daisy Jones and the Six, like we all want to know what really happened, like in to the Civil Wars and to Fleetwood Mac. And like, we obsess every time this like storyline comes up in history, we obsess. And with Carrie Soto is back, it's like, I have never intentionally watched a single game of tennis, but as I'm reading this, I'm realizing how much of it is just in like the culture, because like there are all these women in especially women, but also some of the men that you write about who are so like mythological feeling in American culture and beyond. And I just don't know how you do that. Like, and especially now you're saying you didn't know it was going to be Carrie. You didn't know it was going to be Carrie when you wrote Malibu Rising.
Yeah. But I really appreciate you saying that, because I think, first of all, you've pointed out two things that I work very hard on. And so it just matters a lot to me that you saw those and think that I'm good at them. Makes me feel very good.
Oh, you're so good.
Here's the thing. I am following my own interest, like when it comes to Daisy Jones, it's like, I want to know who slept with who. That's what I want to know.
Right.
At any given time, I'm just asking myself, who slept with who? If it's a TV show, if it's a band, if it's okay, but behind the scenes, who slept with who?
Absolutely.
Is all I'm trying to figure out, But I think what's exciting to me is, you can't just write about it as this happened, then this happened, then this happened. You have to write about it as this is what we think happened. Here's why we think it happened. Here's the only information we have about it. What could possibly be the truth? And for the first time, you're going to learn what the truth is. And for me, it's like, okay, let me go and think of all the questions I have about Hollywood and 70s music and wild parties and supermodels or whatever. Every question that I know will never be answered, you know. How did Brooke Shields really feel when she's in an ad that says nothing comes between me and my Calvins? How did that really feel? What really happened to her? I'm never gonna know, you know, like I can read her biography, but I'm still not gonna know. So I'm gonna go make a fake one and try to figure it out. And I think that's what I love about my job is like, I want to know the answers. So then I just go set up a fake question and try to explore what the answer could be.
It's so smart. And it's the kind of thing, this is like, I feel like the mark of a really good idea is when it happens for the first time and you're like, why hasn't somebody else done this already?
Yes.
And every one of your books, I'm like, oh my God, like it's because it's like, there are things that I Google every single year, things that happened 50 years ago. And every year I'll like think about it. And, you know, there's this new DB Cooper documentary right now. And I was like, I doubt there's anything new in this because I Google him once a year. And of course there wasn't, but it's like things that are past. So you can never know. And it's so good. But like I said, like I am not a sports person. I'm not a tennis person specifically. And so much of this book does take place on the court. But for anybody listening who's like me, that shouldn't be intimidating at all, because it does have this feeling of like the why is the most important thing, the why of everything.
Yeah.
And you have just,
I mean, I don't play tennis and don't know what I'm talking about. So if anyone is like, oh, I don't know anything about tennis, I don't think I should read that book. Like, I don't know anything about tennis. So we're in this together.
I have to disagree with you. At this point, you clearly like, because I learned things about tennis without, and that's the other thing you did really well with this is you didn't try and teach anyone, but you just, it just naturally got into my system. I learned a little bit about tennis through osmosis. I'm slightly less ignorant.
Well, I'll quiz you later, but it is funny. I am always pretending. And I think that's what's fun about our job is it is pretending all the time. Yeah. And it's funny because people will come up to me and they'll be like, oh yeah, you wrote that 70s rock book. You ever heard of this band, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, if it was not part of my research in 2016, no, I don't know that band. You know, like
it's so
I
amazing.
think people want to, they're like, oh, you must be a 70s rock expert, or you must be, you know, a film historian, or you must surf. And it's like, guys, it's smoke and mirrors. I'm faking it, you know, but I love to go learn about something. I love to take a month of time and explore everything I can about that world and find everything I don't know and start to try to talk like them and think like them and throw myself into it. And there's a period of time when I'm writing a book, and it's so funny because nobody ever knows what I'm working on when I'm working on it. So I never get to talk to anyone about it. Yeah. But it's like, there was a period of time in 2016 where I knew everything there was to know about 70s rock. I knew everything. I was so in it, you know? Yeah. And with tennis, like I was just so in it. And so I'm writing these books from the point of view of someone who didn't know anything and has just learned everything. And it has all of that freshness and excitement and passion for me. And it's like, it's just so much fun to decide, okay, where am I going to go next? Like, what am I going to come up with and go learn about and throw myself into?
I love that. I mean, it really, you do write as an expert. It's clear that the research is there. Like it feels, and it never feels like, you know, we're being bogged down with unnecessary information either. It's clearly like a vehicle for the story. But I'm really interested in something I think.
No, I just think that's also a really big compliment, because I think you probably have this too, where you do so much research and you have so much information that it's like, I got to fit in all this information I know now, you know, and you have to kill your darlings with research too. You have to, oh, I found this really good fact and I want to use it. And it's like, it doesn't fit here. And what's funny is, you know, with Evelyn Hugo, one of the things that I had done research on was the kind of like beach bunny, beach blanket bingo, which is a phrase I can never say. You know, that whole scene in Hollywood during, you know, the late 50s and early 60s. And I had done so much research on it. And I was like, it's got to fit into Evelyn Hugo. She's got to do one of these movies. And there was just no room. There was just no room.
Wow.
By the time she's like down and out, she's got to go over to French New Wave, and it just couldn't happen. And it's so funny because you hang on to it, you hang on to this thing that fascinates you. And suddenly I'm like, oh, now I'm in Malibu in 1963, and I have all this information about, the Beach Boys and these movies. So knowing when not to use your research is also a big thing. So I appreciate that
it feels seamless. I mean,
good.
It is that kind of thing where it's like you need so much more than you use, but to feel like you're not shooting yourself in the foot, you have to feel like you understand so much more than you're actually writing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm really fascinated by something that I read about kind of these last 4 books of yours. And I don't know if it was something that I read from like your marketing team or if it was on Goodreads or where, but it was something about the way that each of these last 4 characters, Evelyn, Daisy, Nina, and Carrie, how they relate to kind of the camera or like to celebrity.
Yes. Yes.
And so can you kind of take me through that for a second?
Yeah, I think that if I was just writing about famous women over and over, and they weren't different, and they weren't searching for different things, and they didn't have a different understanding of what it meant to be famous, I would be wasting my time. I think it's only interesting if you throw 4 very different women into the eye of the camera and see how they respond differently. And so, with Evelyn Hugo, what was really fun about that was you're taking this woman who's an outsider. The world is built to keep her out, and she's not going to accept that. So in order to get what she wants, she's going to have to use subterfuge. She's going to have to be smarter than the men she's talking to. She's going to have to trick them into giving her what she wants. And she becomes powerful. And one of her powers is what she looks like. And she knows how to leverage it, and she knows how to exploit it. And the camera helps her do that. The camera becomes her power. But she has to fight for it. And so with Daisy Jones, I thought, how interesting if Evelyn Hugo, she's born with a different name. She's born with different hair. Yeah. She's, she has to change so much about herself. She has to sacrifice so much to get in the front door. What about a woman who's born in the center of it all? She's, she lives in the Hollywood Hills, right, over the Sunset Strip. And just from the day she's born, her name is Daisy Jones, which is like, okay, you're a rock star, I guess, and she's got money and access. She has it all. And she's not using the camera for power. She's using the camera because she's lonely and she needs someone to love her. And this is the only way she's ever found it. That's a totally different woman. That's a totally different relationship to fame. And then I thought, well, those are 2 women that are using the camera to get what they want. But what if there's a woman who just wants that camera to go, just wants the camera to go away, has had this camera chosen for her by her famous father, and has had no choice but to leverage her body in order to take care of her family, but just doesn't want to do it anymore. Where the camera becomes not a tool for her to use, but in fact, her predator. And that felt like a totally different world to explore. And then I thought, I'm not done, because there's one other type of woman that I want to talk about. And that is a woman who says, put the camera on me or don't put the camera on me. I'm doing this, whether you like it or not. That indifference to that camera and that unwillingness to engage with it. Nina feels trapped by that camera because she is going to make sure she performs for it when it shows up. Carrie is like, you can put that camera right in my face and I'm still going to do exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not here to please you. And, in some ways, I think Daisy and Nina are the most understandable reactions to that.
Right.
Evelyn and Carrie become more threatening reactions to that, because it makes us very uncomfortable when women are smarter than us, and it makes us very uncomfortable when women don't care about our approval, because now they have more power than we do. And so it was nice to come back to that with Carrie, that sense that, you know, she might make people uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when reading this, like, you're never heavy-handed, which is another huge compliment that I cannot say enough. You use so much restraint in this book, because it's like, it's a sports book, it's a tennis book. We know about sexism everywhere, and we especially know about it in sports, and we see it constantly thrown at Venus and Serena Williams specifically. But you use this gentle, subtle touch. And I think specifically there's sort of this like multimedia aspect to the book, as you know. I think you remember, Taylor.
Yes.
Where there are some transcripts kind of interspersed, and there's, you know, the sports commentators. And as I was reading it, you know, it's like I noticed the small things you're doing to not only show like the reality of the world that Carrie is just sort of like busting through, and she's like, you know, she's the battle axe, she's just kind of pushing her way through to do what she wants to do, and you just kind of see these realities that are like around her. But then also I feel like there was something I noticed in this book that then I looked back at your other books and thought, wow, she's really doing this. And I don't know if you're doing this on purpose or not, but you do this thing with Carrie where she's just out there living her freaking life. And I'm saying freaking because I don't know if we're allowed to swear on podcasts. I'm an adult. She's living her life, and the realities of her life without her even interacting with them are slightly changing. The way that people talk about not just her, but the other women around her is very slightly changing. The way they interact with the female sports commentators. It's like she's out there living how, you know, women will be told, like, you're being selfish, like you're living selfishly by pursuing this, because the only reason you want it is for yourself. Evelyn does the same thing. Daisy does the same thing. Nina is a little bit more like the every woman, I think. But this idea that she's being selfish, and maybe she is, but it doesn't matter, because when she gets what she wants, it makes it so the women who come after her are that much closer to getting what they want.
Yes.
Oh,
and I think
beautiful.
what's interesting about Carrie and that period of time, which is to say, if you think about the 90s, like what Carrie's doing technically takes place like a little bit after Tonya Harding, the Tonya Harding scandal, and a little bit before the Monica Lewinsky scandal. A
big moment for women.
We were treated real good then, and we had a lot of patience for women that don't fit the mold. But I think what's interesting is that the 90s is a period of time in which it's gone underground. You know, like in the 60s, things were more overt. In the 90s, everyone's doing it and pretending they're not doing it. They're using a word that's a dog whistle. By the time we get to the 90s, people have perfected how to make things subconscious and subtextual. And that's I guess I shouldn't compare them. That's very dangerous. We don't give that shift enough credit for how damaging it is, because it's really easy if you say something overt for someone to be like, hey, that was sexist. Hey, that's racist. But if you say it in this way where it's unclear exactly what you meant, but it definitely gives a vibe, but if someone calls you on it, you're like, I didn't say that. It's a much, you know, it's these things evolve and they become smarter and harder to grab onto. And Carrie, you know, this is a woman who they're calling the battle axe. And it's a fundamentally misogynist thing to say. But if you would point at anybody, they'd be like, what? It's a term of endearment.
It's a compliment.
You know?
And they're like, you hate her, so it's clearly not.
Exactly. And once within the narrative of the book, once somebody accidentally lets it slip that what they really mean is bitch, everybody doesn't know how to handle it because it is what they meant, but they didn't want anybody to say it. And I think that's what's so interesting about, you know, watching these four women in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's that particular way that decade had of twisting the knife in the way that it treated women. It changes over time, but the underlying piece is always there, which is that you're not doing what I want you to do, and your job as a woman is to please.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really interesting conversation in this book that's kind of running throughout it about being the woman who everyone wants to just go away. And that's like such a real thing in our culture that like we could talk about for hours. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's weird because now here we are, are we 20 years after this book takes place? About 30 years? Yes.
30, almost 30. Yeah.
Oh God.
It's disturbing to me.
I know. So we're 30 years after this book takes place, and that hasn't changed. That whole, like, we want you until we don't want you, and then you'd better shut up and disappear.
Yes. And also that it always has to be on our terms. You know, like, it's what I think is so interesting about sports is that it's a little bit more black and white. Was that movie good? Art is subjective. Who won that match? Carrie Soto. You can't deny it. If they could deny it, they would have, and she would be gone. That's what's so interesting about her, is she has to be so undeniable that they can't actually make her go away. Carrie Soto won every single Grand Slam at one point in her career. And because of that, she is entitled to a wild card pretty much anytime she wants it. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. You set the terms and she earned them. And so now you may not like that she's back at the age of 37, and you may say it's undignified and imply that she should be at home taking care of children, or however you want to do it. You can't stop her because she is undeniable. And that's what's so fun is, you know, we have a lot of ways of making women that we want to go away. We're very good at that.
Yeah.
You can't make Carrie Soto go away. And I don't know, I find it really delicious.
Yeah, I love her. I mean, I love all of your books, obviously, as I was saying, but I think, you know, Evelyn left such a huge imprint on so many people's hearts, because in a lot of it felt like the first of this kind of character where it's like she's bad, she's a villain because she's playing the game. She's playing the game, and she's and that's a thing that it's like, it's almost like Evelyn and Carrie they're like who you wish you could be. They're like the woman who's like, you know what, I understand the rules of the patriarchy, and instead of just kind of like trying to make it through, like I feel like what we're talking about, the relationship to the camera these women have, you could just as easily say the relationship to the patriarchy. Evelyn's like, I'm going to abuse that, I'm going to use that. And Daisy's like, just affirm me, tell me I belong here, tell me I can be here. And Nina's hiding, which we all take our times doing, and Carrie's just like, no, I don't, I'm not gonna do it here.
I'm not going to do it. And I think it's just, I think it's fun. I mean, that's part of the thing, right? Is like, is I just want to have fun with it. And I want to create characters that you care about and you're invested in. I don't really care if you like them or not. To be honest, I'm not really thinking about whether I like them. Like, I don't know. Do I like Evelyn Hugo? I don't know. It seems irrelevant to me. It feels more like, do I know her? Yes. Do I believe her? Yes. Am I invested in what happens next? Yes. Do I find myself rooting for her? Yes. Do I like her? I don't know. Like, I certainly think if she were here in this room with me, I'd be terrified because she's one step ahead of me at all times, you know? Like, so I don't know. But, and I feel the same way with Carrie. It's like, I don't know. Do I like her? I don't, does it matter? Like, what I find interesting about her is I believe in her. I want her to get what she wants, and I want her to learn, and I want to see what she's going to do next. And that is sort of the beginning and the end of it for me, is what am I invested more than do I like them?
Well, and I think with Carrie too, it's like the thing that is the scariest about her, like the reason that you are going to be afraid of her in real life and the reason that you're going to admire her is that she doesn't care if you like her. And that, you know, I think there's something intoxicating about that as a reader who is also a woman, just being like, oh God, if only you could go through life being like, I ultimately don't care.
Well, I mean, because also this is the other thing, right? Like, if she doesn't care what I think of her, but I care what she thinks of me, this entire conversation is on her terms.
Yeah.
She has power over me.
Yeah.
Like, the person who wins is the person who cares the least. And ultimately Carrie's identity is wrapped up in something else. It's not tied up in, do you like her? It's tied up in, can she beat you? And that means I have no power over her. I can't threaten her. I can't tell her that if she does certain things, I'm going to call her a name, you know? And like, that's how we control women's behavior, you know? Like, if you do that, you know, it's like, I'm totally still controlled by that. I really don't want people to think I'm mean. And if you're like, oh, if you did that, that'd be so mean. It's like, oh, I can't do that, you know? But like, imagine what's on the other side of that fear of like, go ahead, call me mean. Like, I don't care. I'm going to still go do it. I'd have so much more power. I'm trying to step into that power as a human being. And I think writing Carrie Soto was a big part of that. The same way writing Evelyn Hugo was a really big part of being like, you know what? I'm not here to figure out how to please you. I'm here to be charming as I figure out how to get what I want. you know? It's like, oh my gosh, that shift is like, Evelyn is my mentor in that, and Carrie is my mentor in you know, caring less what people think of me.
Well, that is a perfect segue into what I feel like could be kind of our wrap-up question. I like, truly, if you hadn't just done a million other press things, would probably just totally ignore that we've hit our time limit and try and keep talking to you. Obviously, buy the book from Booktopia. You're here already. You're listening to this. Get Carrie Soto's back. You won't regret it. You will very likely cry at least twice if you're anything like me. And then Taylor, okay, so let me think. What was I about to ask you? I had a question. Okay, yes. So this was a question I had for you and you kind of answered it, but maybe you could just give like kind of a wrap up with this. Do you feel like when you're writing in general, you are working something out with each book?
Yes. I think what's fun is that I don't tend to work out things in my immediate life. I'm much more working out philosophical questions.
Right.
And it's interesting how I take on that philosophical question and then I start to find that I already knew the answer and I just typed it out. and you know, it's like, I have to write in order to find out what I think. I think I'm butchering a quote from I think Flannery O'Connor or somebody, but it's when I'm finished with a book, I'm like, oh, you know what? I've been struggling with the idea of how to let go of people pleasing. And I've now just written 2 books, one in which someone is a grade A people pleaser, and the other where this woman wouldn't even know where to start how to please people. And I think it's because I'm on a journey of learning how to stop doing that, you know? So it's never like, it's never in the facts of the story. It's always in the theme of the story. And I am telling you, every single one of these books, especially these last 4, have changed me. I am a different person having written them. And I like that feeling. I like the feeling that my work is not just something I do, that I can look back on these 4 books and say, this is what I learned. And this is how I grew as a person.
I mean, that is so beautiful. And I mean, I think a lot of your readers feel the same way. And I definitely do. Like reading this book, I was thinking, wow, I wonder, like, really, I was thinking, I wonder if she's kind of been working out that especially like, you know, trained feminine urge to please, working that out. And I felt like inspired. I felt inspired, and I felt really challenged by Carrie Soto. I felt really like pushed to give more of myself to the world instead of just like kind of always augmenting for everyone. So I'm really excited.
God, that makes me so happy. I am, it's like my life's work to stop just being agreeable and just be closer to who I feel like I actually am inside, you know? And so if people can take anything away from this book, it's like, you know, maybe don't be as mean about it as Carrie. You don't have to be so sharp tongued.
She still needs therapy.
You know,
don't
live
get
for
me wrong.
yourself. Oh yeah. That is the perfect way to put it. Even by the time you get to the end of the book, Carrie Soto needs therapy. And it's very clear she's not going to
Which was the other title. The original title that your daughter suggested was Carrie Soto Needs Therapy.
Carrie Soto Needs Therapy.
We know what your next book is now.
I mean, it's so accurate though. You know,
really is.
She does need therapy, and I hope she gets it, but she's too stubborn to go.
Yeah, we'll see. She's made some big changes in the last year. I mean, it's been 30 years now, so who knows? She's probably doing
maybe
great.
In those 30 years she did go to therapy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting me talk to you about this book, and thank you to Booktopia for having us. And
yes, thank you, Booktopia.
Be sure to get your copy of Carrie Soto is Back from Booktopia.
Thanks to Taylor Jenkins Reid and Emily Henry. You can find links to all books mentioned in this episode in the description below, and if you enjoyed our show, drop us a review on Apple Podcasts or a like on Spotify and let us know what you think. Join us on Friday as our in-house team of book experts sit down to give you a special preview of the upcoming books that you should check out in September 2022. Until then, thanks for listening and never stop reading.